Hello, and thank you for jumping on to episode 2 of Steelers to Go, your daily to go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. I'm your host, Noah Strackbine, here every single Monday through Friday. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talk or anywhere you get your favorite Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Today, I was going to come on here and I was going to talk about how Kevin Dotson might have let the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback plan slip, but instead, I decided that Omar Khan in the general manager position might just be a little bit above what Kevin Dotson had to say. And obviously, because Kevin Colbert is gone for the first time in 22 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers need a brand new general manager. And where did they go? Well, they went to the guy next door. Omar Khan's been here since 2001. He's been handling salary cap duties since 2016. Seemed like an obvious choice, right? At least at the beginning. But after the Steelers started diving into names and interviewing and second interviewing, it seemed that of the 16 people that they have brought in to assess to replace Kevin Colbert, Omar Khan's name somewhat slipped to the wayside. And Brandon Hunt, their pro scout, seemed to jump everybody. And people started talking, oh, well, that's the direction the Pittsburgh Steelers will likely go. Brandon Hunt seems to fit every mold that this team already has. Everything that Kevin Colbert will leave behind, Brandon Hunt seems to already contain. Makes sense, right? If you're going to replace a legendary Hall of Fame GM, you might as well get somebody that pretty much resembles him, especially if you're going to keep Mike Tomlin around and you're going to try to continue the success that those two have built for the last 15 years. But they didn't do that. They went with the salary cap guru in Omar Khan, a guy who has been here so long that he probably does know everything that Kevin Colbert has done in his career and probably understands exactly what it takes to replace Kevin Colbert, but he might not operate the same way. And I think that's the most telling thing in this entire process is people moved on from Khan and they jumped on the Brandon Hunt train because they believed that he fit the mold of Kevin Colbert better. Khan doesn't fit the mold at all. He's a guy that doesn't really have a scouting background at all. He does handle salary caps, and he's a phenomenal salary cap guru, phenomenal salary cap guru. This guy has made magic time and time and time again, right up until this season. There has never been a year where the Pittsburgh Steelers have had a bad contract in the time that I have been covering the team in the last 4 or 5 seasons. So it made sense if that's the direction you're going to go. Somebody who's been here, somebody who has said, hey, man, I have a proven track record. I know what I'm doing. I'm valuable to this team. And if you don't give me this job, chances are I'm going to leave. And if that's the options that they had to weigh, either lose Brandon Hunt or lose Omar Khan, they decided to stick with Khan. We'll see how that works out. We don't know those answers. And it's impossible to say, oh, well, if you had to pick between those two, obviously I'm going to stick with the guy who saves money. But if the argument is over the guy who found Minkah Fitzpatrick, over the guy who found Akello Witherspoon, over the guy who found James Daniels or brought in Mitchell Trubisky or helped in the assessment of TJ Watt or helped in the assessment of Najee Harris, it seems as if that's difficult to say, well, we'll get rid of him. He's less valuable than this guy. And I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers thought it in that sense. I think what they thought is Omar Khan knows exactly how to run this business. And he knows exactly how to run the football side of every operation that he will have control of for the next X amount of years. He's a guy that's going to come in here. He's a guy that's going to continue to do exactly what he's been doing in negotiating really good contracts. And hopefully Mike Tomlin and company have enough understanding in the scouting game, and I believe that they do, to continue to bring in the talent for Khan to negotiate with. Seems reasonable, right? But at the same time, you're going to lose your pro scout because Brandon Hunt, chances are, is going to take a job elsewhere. He has interest from Philadelphia and he has interest from Buffalo, both teams that are probably going to say, hey, look, if the Pittsburgh Steelers don't want you to be their GM or their assistant GM, you could come be ours. You could come work for us. And maybe he's not going to do it out of spite, but I think at some point, and that point is now, he had the realization that there's no more upside here. There's no more upside in Pittsburgh, where there probably is upside in other areas. And those teams they've called for the last 2 or 3 years. That has really ramped up this past offseason. But he could go find a job where the end game is not pro scout. The end game is general manager. And that's not going to be in Pittsburgh now, because Omar Khan's here. And if the Steelers will have it their way, and if things work out, that's another 22 years where they don't have to worry about a general manager or an assistant general manager, which is where I think the most important piece of all of this comes in. Andy Weidl, out of Philadelphia, started his career in Pittsburgh back in 1998. He's a guy that complements Khan probably as well as Brandon Hunt would have. Don't get me wrong. I think in the perfect light, in the perfect situation, Pittsburgh Steelers fans would have loved Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt to be GM and assistant GM and just work side by side, where both of them could have total control of this team. That could work in their selective duties, and it doesn't miss a step. Kevin Colbert was not the negotiation guy. To a degree, he was. He handled a little bit of everything, but Kevin Colbert was the guy that missed the annual owners meeting because he was scouting quarterbacks. Kevin Colbert was a guy who, at 60 whatever years old, was still out there every single day on a plane, flying from pro day to pro day, trying to find the best talent in the NFL draft. Kevin Colbert was as hands-on as they come with general managers. And you don't really see that with a lot of general managers in today's NFL. Kevin Colbert was an old school guy. That's hard to replace. And if the new school NFL says we don't need to be that hands-on, well, the old school NFL seemed to work quite well, because the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't missed in a draft in quite some time. Maybe not the first round. People will say names as if Lima Snead, Artie Burns, Jarvis Jones do not exist. They do. But for the most part, Kevin Colbert was very, very productive in his scouting. And the Steelers still need that. They can't just move away from, oh, well, our new GM is just going to hang out and sit back and negotiate and run the business operations side of it and work with administration and that whole nine. He's going to be a true blue-blooded GM. No, that's not how the Pittsburgh Steelers operate. That's not how Art Rooney operates, nor does he care to operate like that, which is where Andy Weidl comes in. Andy Weidl is a pro scout. He's been with the Philadelphia Eagles since 2016, working as their player personnel scout, their VP of, I believe, football administration, pretty much the same thing that Khan's title is, but he had a direct hand in scouting. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers need. I mean, he goes as far back as working with Bill Nunn when he first started in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In my opinion, that's as good as it gets when it comes to a teacher, is working with a guy like Bill Nunn and learning, crafting, molding yourself to the NFL scouting game through possibly the greatest scout of all time. Doesn't get any better than that. And that's who the Pittsburgh Steelers want. Art Rooney most certainly looked at Andy Weidl and said, this guy has the intangibles, has the sculpt, has everything that I'm looking for. Oh, and he worked with my favorite scout of all time in Bill Nunn. Seems to be the perfect hire for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't make him GM. They made him assistant GM. Why? Because Omar Khan deserved the general manager job, most certainly. And I don't think, even if you were somebody who sided with Brandon Hunt, you were somebody who had a second understanding that if it's Omar Khan, that's okay. If it's Omar Khan, that's just as good as Brandon Hunt, and in different directions, obviously, but still a quality hire and somebody that Pittsburgh Steelers fans wanted. They wanted the in-house guy. Maybe some of them wanted Louis Riddick, but most of them wanted the in-house guy, and Omar Khan is that inside guy. Andy Weidl brings that aspect. He brings that scouting. He brings that hands-on touch that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been looking for. Hand in hand, it feels as if the Pittsburgh Steelers general manager position, even if it's impossible to get better than Kevin Colbert, improved. Why? Because they now have somebody who could come in here and be the salary cap guru still, and at the same time, not miss a beat with Kevin Colbert's hands-on experience, all while Kevin Colbert's still in the building. Brandon Hunt likely won't be, but until that time comes, all while Brandon Hunt is still in the building, all while Mike Tomlin is still in the building. The Pittsburgh Steelers did exactly what they needed to do. They brought two household names to Pittsburgh, two guys with ties to the Steel City, two guys that understand what it takes to make this organization run and make this organization succeed. Two guys that understand who Art Rooney is, who the Rooney family is, who Kevin Colbert was, and who the franchise has developed into and where it came from. Had to replace Kevin Colbert. They did it with two. And that's what it takes. To replace a Hall of Famer, that's what it takes. It takes two guys that could work hand in hand and say, hey, I'm going to be this side of them. You're going to be this side of them. And together, we're not going to miss a beat in who the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying and what the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to do and accomplish after Kevin Colbert.